Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weekly overlook. Today I'll be covering the weather for the week of January 7th until January 14th of 2024. So starting off with some of the outlooks that we are expected to see this week. For today, on the 7th, we do have a marginal threat for north central Texas. I'm not really going to go over this in today's forecast. This is going to be the start of something kind of big, though, and I will go somewhat in depth on in this forecast. But overall, I am going to mostly cover it today or tomorrow and on Tuesday. Tomorrow we do have an enhanced risk for the 8th for the Gulf Coast states along the Gulf Coast for Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and parts of the Florida Panhandle. This enhanced risk may be extended back to Texas by the next SBC update for the 8th. But as of right now, this enhanced risk is mainly isolated to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. And again, the marginal threat for the 7th is going to be the start of this severe weather event. Threats for tomorrow do include a 10% tornado risk with a hashed area for the possibility of strong tornadoes, with some weak tornadoes being expected. I may possibly go live for this tomorrow. It really all depends on when the main event is expected to take place, comparative to if I have any plans going on tomorrow. Um, the hashed area does mean that we do have a 10% or greater probability of an EF5 to or EF2 to EF5 within 25 miles a point, or just anywhere generally in that hashed area. So again, we could see the possibility of strong tornadoes with some weak tornadoes being expected as the general rule of thumb with hatched areas like this. For tomorrow, we also do have a pretty significant damaging wind risk as well, with the 30% with the hash area, which does mean that we could see the possibility, 10% or greater probability of wind gusts being 65 knots or greater within that hashed area. So we could see the possibility of some pretty strong wind gusts associated with some of the severe thunderstorms that we are expected to see tomorrow. And this is going to be the secondary risk alongside the tornado risk. Again, both of these are, if they were issued by themselves without a tornado or hail or wind risk. Currently, what's issued for wind and tornado, they would be able to issue up to an enhanced risk by themselves. So the tornado risk and the wind risk will be the primary threats for tomorrow. And then we also do have a secondary hail risk with a 15% probability for large hail. And that's not really going to be all that much of a concern for tomorrow, but it is something to note that we could see the probability of some large hail with some of the severe thunderstorms, but overall the primary threat is going to be the tornado and damaging wind threat. For our day 3 outlook, or Tuesday, we do have an enhanced risk issued for our day 3 outlook for the Florida Panhandle into Georgia and southern Alabama, with a probabilistic 30%, which is an enhanced risk. Um, so this is probably going to be the same risks as what we are currently seeing for tomorrow. We are definitely going to see the potential for some strong damaging wind gusts and the probability of some strong tornadoes with weak ones being expected. We're probably going to see the same risks if it isn't increased for tomorrow. We're probably going to see the same risks with a 10% tornado risk with that hashed area, possibly 30% with that hash area as well for damaging winds, as well as the potential for some large hail. And that is the primary risks for severe weather in the upcoming days. We are expected to see the probability for severe thunderstorms outside of the significant severe thunderstorms that are going to be possible on Monday and Tuesday later on this week. But as of right now, currently nothing is issued for day 4 to day 8 outlooks, but something to note is that from day 5 to day 8, or day 5 to day 7, it does say predictability too low. So we have the potential for severe thunderstorms, but the SPC can't necessarily put a finger on where it is expected to happen. So overall, that is going to be quite a big event that we are expected to be watching out for the next couple days is going to be the threat for significant severe thunderstorms, the probability of a tornado outbreak on Monday and Tuesday. And again, I may possibly go live for this. It really all depends. Taking a look at our WPC outlook, starting off with our excessive rainfall forecast for this week. For today, we don't really have anything issued as far as flooding. However, for tomorrow and for day 3, we do have a moderate threat for flash flooding, which is at least a 40% for flash flooding, and that does mean widespread flash flooding, with some flash flooding possibly being significant. So for tomorrow and for Tuesday, we will have to watch out for those moderate threat areas for flash flooding, as that could potentially be significant and lead to hazards with traveling. Um, Important things to note with with these two moderate threats for flash flooding is that if you do come across a flooded road, do not try to drive through it. Turn around. Don't drown. Don't attempt to drive through the flooded road. You don't know how deep the water is, and a little bit too much water can easily lift your vehicle off of the ground. So it is extremely risky to drive through flooded roads. So don't do it if you encounter a flooded road. Find an alternative route or just stop driving. Um, for day 3 to day 5, we don't have anything issued for day 5, but we do have a marginal threat for day 4 for some of the far northern New England corridor for Maine into New Hampshire. And then we are expected to see significant impacts in the winter weather department as well. So we're checking off all the tally boxes for severe thunderstorms, significant severe thunderstorms, significant flooding being possible, as well as significant winter weather impacts. For today, we are expected to see quite a bit of heavy snowfall for the Central Plains, and that is going to be moving into the Midwest by tomorrow. We are expected to see a ton of snowfall, and again, I will be getting into how much snowfall we are expected to see and why. But this is going to become pretty hazardous across the Central Plains into the Midwest the next couple of days, as it is going to reduce visibility when you're driving. It's going to make roads very, very hazardous, and it is highly recommended that you do not drive if you know you live in any of the areas that could potentially be impacted by this winter storm, as it is going to be very, very dangerous to try to drive through this. Only drive through this if necessary, and if you absolutely have to drive through this, make sure you are definitely staying extremely alert on the road, because you don't know what other drivers may be doing. So again, very significant impacts with winter weather as well, and this is going to make driving conditions pretty hazardous. And then for the rest of the week, for day 3, we are expected to see that winter storm move up into the New England corridor and drop a ton of snow across New York into Maine, as well as the Upper Peninsula in northern Michigan back into Wisconsin. For day 4 to day 5, or day 4 to day 7, we are expected to see a second winter storm for day 6 to day 7 later on this week, which I will cover on the Wednesday update, as well as touch on it in today's weekly overlook. Um, we shouldn't see the same impacts that we are expected to see with the winter storm that is expected to happen in the early half of this week, but it is expected to lead to some dangerous conditions for driving as well later on this week. So if you live in any of the areas that are currently highlighted in green or blue, for these areas for day 6 and day 7, make sure you are watching out for updates and staying weather alert. Before we start taking a look at the weather models, I do want to go over the general overview on the WPC website for our frontal systems, mainly at the surface, and what we are expected to see, and what I'm going to be covering when we do take a look at the models. So starting off with our with Monday. We do have that trough that is situated across the southwest. As this moves into some of the high plains and some of the flatter areas, that is going to begin cyclone genesis, and we are expected to see a classic warm sector setup with a cold front and a warm front, the warm front ahead of that. Um, Again, for today, we are seeing that cold front push into central Texas, into northern central Texas, and that is going to lead to some more marginal severe thunderstorms, mainly a threat for damaging winds. And as that low pressure system moves eastward into the southeast here, that warm front is going to race ahead a little bit, and we are expected to see that cold front continue to push eastward. This surface low is expected to cause a bunch of strong warm air and moisture advection out of the Gulf of Mexico, and that is what is going to be providing our instability, moisture, and heat to the region to fuel our threat for severe thunderstorms. Um, Again, this is going to be a quite potent setup for severe thunderstorms, as we do have a day 3 and a day 2 enhanced risk with the possibility of violent tornadoes. With weak ones being expected. So again, this is going to be a quite potent setup for severe thunderstorms. As for the winter weather outlooks and winter weather impacts that we are expected to see from this trough, as that trough advex northward and to the northwest on the northern side of that surface low, that is going to be leading to a lot of that snowfall on the northern side of that low pressure system, um, and to the north of where we are expected to see our severe thunderstorms. And then as that warm front pushes northward, that is going to open up the possibility for a little bit more widespread, more marginal, and more isolated severe thunderstorms further inland, more towards North Carolina and South Carolina, where we won't have overall the best instability or as much instability as we see closer down to the Gulf of Mexico, where we have the majority of our moisture, instability, and heat coming from. But again, we should be able to see a little bit more slight to more marginal severe thunderstorms uh, up into North Carolina and South Carolina as that warm front pushes northward. And then we are expected to see a second trough push through around Thursday to Wednesday. This trough is expected to bring quite a bit of rainfall, as well as that second winter storm I was talking about to the Central Plains into the Ohio River Valley. Taking a look at our weather model, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do in our Jetstream pattern. Starting off with the first trough that we are expected to see blow through the United States, leading to some significant severe thunderstorms in the deep southeast. Um, not really going to go too in depth on the threat for severe thunderstorms, but I will go somewhat in depth. I did do a very in depth overlook of the significant severe thunderstorms that we are expected to see tomorrow and on Tuesday in the video that I did have on the 5th. So if you are interested in the much more in depth overview of the severe thunderstorms for tomorrow and on Tuesday, I will have a video out going very in depth tomorrow. Um, but I also have one out for the 5th. If you are interested in that, I'm not going to be going nearly as in depth as I did in that video. But you can see the first trough as it moves into the Central Plains. It is going to be undergoing cyclone Lee genesis as it moves into a little bit more flatter terrain. And as that low pressure system in that trough advex up to the north, that is going to be leading to all those rain showers and all those snow showers that we are expected to see across the Central Plains into the Midwest. And you can see that we do have a very strong 500 millibar jet streak here, upwards in an excess of 100 miles per hour and 100 knots. And that is expected to only continue to increase and potentially get an excess of 150 miles per hour, which is absolutely insane. And this is going to be a very potent setup for severe thunderstorms, as we are expected to see a lot of directional shear come out of this, as we are expected to see a strong low-level jet. Um, and we are also expected to see quite a bit of speed here, which is really going to help with storm organization, as it will separate the updraft and the downdraft and allow those storms to organize much more easily. So we are expected to see a ton of directional shear to support the possibility for tornadoes, as well as some pretty strong storms in the southeast. And as that trough moves out into the Atlantic Ocean, we are expected to see that trough come out of the south. Um, I'm going to switch over to GFS model so we can take a look at that second trough that we are expected to see later on this week. And again, that is going to be leading to that secondary winter storm I was talking about, as well as the threat for some lower end severe thunderstorms in the southeast again. We are expected to see that trough move into the Central Plains and deepen around the 12th and move into the eastern half of the United States, leading to quite a bit of rainfall, as well as that winter storm as it advex to the north. And again, this is going to have a pretty classic warm sector setup with a cold front and a warm front, and it's going to look fairly similar to the event that we are expected to see on Monday and Tuesday. However, we aren't really expected to have nearly enough instability to see what we are expected to have on Monday and Tuesday, as well as the trough overall isn't as well organized as what we are seeing on Monday and Tuesday. So overall, due to this, we aren't really expected to see the crazy severe thunderstorms that we are going to see on Monday and Tuesday, and our severe thunderstorms are going to be a little bit more tame later on in the week. And again, I will show you the supercell composites and show you where we are expected to see those severe thunderstorms. And again, that is going to be leading to quite a bit of snowfall. Taking a look at our composite reflectivity, I'm going to be going over the when and where you should be able to see our rain showers as well as our winter storm impacts. So starting off with a trough that we are expected to see impact the southeast and lead to quite a bit of significant severe thunderstorms. Again, we are expected to see the first enhanced risk on the 8th on Monday, as well as quite a bit of snowfall for the central plains into the Midwest. On Monday as well. And then on Tuesday, we are expected to see that system push more so into the Midwest, as well as extend down into Missouri, as well as push into some of the New England corridor, as well as into Michigan and Canada. And that's when that QLCS is going to be pushing into the eastern half of the United States, closer to the Atlantic Ocean, and impact Florida, Atlanta, or Georgia, the Atlanta region, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Um, More towards North Carolina and South Carolina, as mentioned previously. We aren't really expected to see um, uh, we aren't really expected to see the crazy severe thunderstorms that we are going to see further down to the south due to lesser instability, but we could still see some severe thunderstorms, but they are going to be much more tame. And then this system is expected to move out into Atlantic Ocean on the 10th, and we are expected to continue to see rain showers as well as snow showers back across the New England region as well as the Ohio River Valley on the 10th, and that is finally expected to clear out with some lingering snow showers across some regions for the 11th. And then the second trough that we are expected to see that is going to begin to organize in northern Texas and the deep southeast here around the 12th, and push into the eastern half of the United States, leading to quite a bit of snowfall for the Ohio River Valley down into central Tennessee on the 13th. And finally, this is going to push out into Canada with some lingering snow showers on the 14th. Taking a look at our named 3 kilometer CONUS models again, starting off with our supercell composite, I'm going to be going over the threat for severe thunderstorms with our supercell composite models across the Gulf Coast states and into Florida, as well as the threat for some weaker severe thunderstorms later on this week. So for the enhanced risks, that we do see across the Gulf Coast states, we are seeing some fairly high supercell composite model readings, getting fairly high, upwards of 20 to 30 in Louisiana, and getting very, very high in the Gulf of Mexico, where we do have better instability. However, we aren't expected to see nearly the same amount of instability ashore as what we do have in the Gulf of Mexico, so don't be alarmed when you see all of this blue and pink in the Gulf of Mexico. But again, as you still want to be taking the necessary precautions for these upcoming severe thunderstorms. Because even if I tell you to not be alarmed about the stuff in the Gulf of Mexico, we still are expected to see some quite potent severe thunderstorms ashore across the Gulf Coast states in the Gulf Coast region. So very, very high energy or very, very high supercell composite readings. Um, very indicative of a strong threat for severe thunderstorms tomorrow and on Tuesday. And then we can also switch over to our GFS models. As again mentioned previously, we do have a fairly similar setup with that classic warm sector setup and the threat for some lower end severe thunderstorms later on this week across the southeast again, with the possibility of some severe thunderstorms along that cold front in the southeast on the 12th and into the 13th. Taking a look at our total snowfall with that blizzard that we are expected to see, the first one this week, and the stronger one out of the two that we are expected to see blow through the Central Plains into the Midwest, as well as impact the New England corridor. Um, we're going to be taking a look at the total snowfall accumulation and how much snowfall we are expected to see fall from the sky with this system. Across eastern Nebraska, it is going to be getting quite scary with snowfall totals potentially getting above 20 inches across eastern Nebraska. Um, that is more than 2 feet. So definitely make sure you are taking the necessary precautions if you do know that you could potentially be seeing more than 2 feet of snow, as well as anywhere that could potentially be seeing at least a foot of snow, as that does seem like we are going to be getting uh, a ton of snowfall, and a very large portion of the U.S. and Central Plains is going to be seeing at least a foot of snow because of the system. Is going to be snowing a ton. It does look like the average for snowfall across the areas that are going to be affected by this system is going to be ranging anywhere between 7 inches to 12 inches. Um, and again, potentially getting as high as 2 feet or higher. So again, definitely make sure you're taking the necessary precautions for the impacts that may be possible from this blizzard. And then as for the secondary winter storm that we are expected to see impact later on this week, I'm probably going to be covering that more in depth on the Wednesday update, as it isn't really all that much of a concern. But again, I will be covering it on the Wednesday update. Taking a look at our total precipitation, I'm going to be going over our total precipitation so we can get an idea of how much rainfall that we are expected to see across the eastern half of the United States, mainly in those moderate threat areas where we do have the possibility of significant flash flooding. Starting off with the first moderate threat for Louisiana into southern Mississippi, models are currently indicating that we could potentially see upwards of 12 inches of rainfall, but mainly staying around the average of 5 to 10 inches across across the moderate threat area. And across the entire eastern half of the United States, we are expected to see an absolutely ton amount of rainfall with this trough, as we could potentially see an average of 3 to 5 inches across the vast majority of the eastern half of the United States. And then for the second moderate threat area, which is around the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York City vicinity, we could potentially see rainfall totals getting as high as 8 inches. So it is going to rain a ton across the eastern half of the United States in the early half this week, and that's not even going to be the first time it is going to rain across the eastern half of the United States. So if you do live in any of the low-lying areas that do usually see accumulation of water in some of these heavy rainfall events, definitely make sure you are taking the necessary precautions for the rainfall that we are expected to see this week. Taking a look at our temperatures and how our temperatures are expected to change throughout the week, we are expected to see a very, very cold blast of air rush out of the Arctic regions into the Central Plains, eastern half of the United States, and northern Rockies, back behind that secondary low pressure system that we are expected to see impact the U.S. this week. Again, it's going to be very, very cold. It's going to be getting well below freezing, and it's going to get well below negative as well. It's going to be getting potentially as low as -20, and potentially even -30 as far north as North Dakota and Montana. Again, it's going to be getting very, very, very cold, and it is going to potentially even be dangerous with how cold it is expected to get across the Central Plains and northern half of the United States. Um, we are going to see temperatures that could be getting below freezing as far south as northern Mississippi and northern Texas. And a very good portion of the United States is expected to see temperatures that are going to be getting below freezing and potentially uh, below zero for a very, very good portion of the US this week by the end of this week. So, again, it's going to potentially be dangerous as it's going to be getting very, very cold. So, if you do live in any of the areas where you could potentially be impacted by very, very cold air below zero, definitely make sure you are checking the temperature before going outside. And if you do have to go outside, definitely make sure you are grabbing a jacket. Taking a look at our climatology outlooks, I'm primarily going to be focusing on our temperature climatology outlooks because the vast majority of the United States is seeing the potential for temperatures that are going to be getting well below freezing, and even upwards of an 80% chance of temperatures being below normal across the vast majority of the Central Plains as far south as northern Oklahoma and Arkansas. A very, very good portion of the United States is going to be seeing the potential for temperatures that are going to be getting well below freezing. And again, some of the temperatures that we are going to be seeing across the Central Plains in the northern Central Plains, potentially getting as far south as northern Oklahoma and northern Arkansas, are going to potentially even be dangerous without taking the necessary precautions if you were to leave the house. Again, you definitely want to be taking a coat. If you are planning on leaving the house and you know that it's going to be cold, I highly recommend checking the temperature before you do any of your outside plans. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. If you live in any of the areas I covered for tomorrow, or any of the areas I covered for the significant flash flooding that may be possible, as well as the significant winter storms, please stay with it alert for the time being and watch for updates. Two other channels that I highly suggest you check out are One Nation Weather and Weather Watcher. The links to their channels will be in the description. If you notice anything might have been wrong with this forecast, or you'd like to make a suggestion or ask a question, please leave a comment. I do read them. And hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with an in-depth forecast on the severe weather for tomorrow.